the split one the other day.
Oh.
You gotta shut that alarm off, I think.
Oh
Anyways,
shoot. Yeah, good
um,
thinking.
so when we were talking about um, what would have happened if the things we wanted to have happened
Would have worked
would have
out.
worked out the way we wanted them to at the time, where that would lead us. And it's kind of funny to think about that and actually take perspective on that, because it's like, man, if that would have worked the way I wanted it to at the time,
We would have been down a horrible path.
yeah, I mean, it would have been like all the stuff we're working
Mm.
on now that's much greater in scope, much greater of an impact, much more independent in nature, would be gone,
Mm-hmm.
because we would have been pursuing, or I would have been pursuing, a job that is in a vein that I don't really want to be in,
Mm-hmm.
with people I don't want to be in business with.
Same for me. Yeah, it's the same.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting. And that really does, it ties back to what I heard in that Worthy book about rejection is God's protection.
Mm-hmm.
I do think there's a lot to that.
I do too. It's it's really,
I mean, we're praying for protection, we're praying for guidance, we're praying for open and closed doors, and then
right.
when it happens, we're like, why? Why are you closing the door?
Yeah, I'm trying to not use the word interesting, but it is kind of mind blowing,
Yeah.
I would say, of this, the concept of, and if what I wanted to have happened, it's
Mm-hmm.
hmm, just that's all I can say is
Mm-hmm.
so.
Yep, it's pretty amazing for sure.
Okay, so
Yes,
20.
20. Okay, ready?
Yes, but I'm rereading back a little
Mm-hmm.
bit.
Uh-huh.
Um, so I'm erasing the chapter heading in my mind.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going back to Jesus said to them in the previous chapter. Actually,
Okay,
start there.
I can start there,
Yeah,
yeah. So 28,
yeah, of
verse 28 of 19.
19. Yep.
All right, so Jesus said to them, assuredly, I say to you that in the regeneration, when the Son of Man sits on the throne of his glory, you who have followed me will also sit on 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And everyone who has left houses or brothers or sisters or father or mother or wife or children or lands for my name's sake shall receive 100-fold and inherit eternal life. But many who are first will be last, and the last first. For the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard. Now, when he had agreed with the laborers for the denarius a day, he sent them into his vineyard. And he went out about the third hour and saw others standing idle in the marketplace, and said to them, you also go into the vineyard, and whatever is right I will give you. So they went. Again, he went out about the 6th and 9th hour, and did likewise. And about the 11th hour he went out and found others standing idle, and said to them, why have you been standing here idle all day? They said to him, because no one hired us. He said to them, you also go into the vineyard, and whatever is right you will receive. So when evening had come, the owner of the vineyard said to his steward, call the laborers and give them their wages, beginning with the last to the first. And when those came who were hired about the 11th hour, they each received a denarius. But when the first came, they supposed that they would receive more. And they likewise received each a denarius. And when they had received it, they complained against the landowner, saying, these last men have worked only 1 hour, and you made them equal to us, who have borne the burden and the heat of the day. But he answered one of them and said, friend, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for a denarius? Take what is yours and go your way. I wish to give to this last man the same as to you. It is not lawful for me.
No, is it not lawful?
Oh, is it not lawful for me to do what I wish with my own things? Or is your eye evil because I am good? So the last will be first, and the first last. For many are called, but few chosen. Now Jesus, going up to Jerusalem, took the 12 disciples aside on the road and said to them, Behold, we are going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be betrayed to the chief priests and to the scribes, and they will condemn him to death and deliver him to the Gentiles to mock and scourge and to crucify, and the third day he will rise again. Then the mother of Zebedee's sons came to him with her sons, kneeling down and asking something from him. And he said to her, What do you wish? She said to him, Grant that these two sons of mine may sit, one on your right hand and the other on the left in your kingdom. But Jesus answered and said, You do not know what you ask. Are you able to drink the cup that I am about to drink and be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with? They said to him, We are able. So he said to them, You will indeed drink my cup and be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with. But to sit on my right hand and on my left is not mine to give, but it is for those for whom it is prepared by my Father. And when the 10 heard it, they were greatly displeased with the two brothers. But Jesus called them to himself and said, You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and those who are great exercise authority over them. Yet it shall not be so among you, but whoever desires to become great among you, let him be your servant, and whoever desires to be first among you, let him be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life a ransom for many. Now, as they went out of Jericho, a great multitude followed him. And behold, two blind men sitting by the road, when they heard that Jesus was passing by, cried out, saying, Have mercy on us, O Lord, Son of David. Then the multitude warned them that they should be quiet. But they cried out all the more, saying, Have mercy on us, O Son of David. So Jesus stood still and called them and said, What do you want me to do for you? They said to him, Lord, that our eyes may be opened. So Jesus had compassion and touched their eyes, and immediately their eyes received sight, and they followed him. I feel like now that we did that, I'm like, we should keep reading forward because then it talks about then what happens.
No, because that's another.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, what you got, my love? Or
Um. So do you remember? So I want to start with the lesser, what I perceive to be the lesser thing. I think. Do you remember when we were talking about? And I don't think it was on camera. That's kind of why I want to bring it up. But when we were talking about Jesus doing healing, or Jesus in his daily walk, how
oh,
he wasn't seeking out people to heal, but would heal people that came to him.
mm-hmm.
So this is another example that they're crying out to him.
That stood out to me too.
But to go back to that conversation, we were talking about how Jesus didn't go out of his way to heal people unless they were coming to him to be healed.
Mm-hmm.
But when there's an example of him pursuing people, it was to combat evil spirits,
Mm-hmm.
specifically to combat evil spirits. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't, hey, I'm going to go out of my way to heal people. He healed people as he went along,
Right.
but his going out of the way was, I mean, even when they talk about him going across the sea to, I don't remember if it was the two guys in the cemetery or the guy that was breaking chains and throwing himself in the fire, and that he put the spirit in the pigs. One of those two, like he went to an area that normally Jews didn't go to. Like he went there specifically, and
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like, why are you going to this town? Like that's not.
Right.
And so part of me, and again, this isn't something that we've studied or put a lot of energy into. This is cursory reading and remembering knowledge, but it doesn't seem like he went out of his way for healing. He went out of his way to fight evil spirits. And it's like he went out of his way to fight these specific spirits
Mm-hmm.
through inhabiting specific people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you see the same thing here. I mean, he's going along a path and there's people, crying out, and people are like, shh, shh, shh.
Well, and notice too that they come to him and ask for healing, and both times in this section, he asks them, "What do you need specifically?"
Right,
And then they tell him, and then he does it.
right,
And I think a lot of times we feel like God should just come, run us down, take care of things, and if not, then we just cry about it.
right.
Or we say, "Help me, help me, help me," but we don't tell him, we don't come to him with specific requests. And actually, whatever the one is that we have up on the cabinet, um, is like you don't have because you don't ask.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, he just shows us that that's how he operates.
Yeah, and I think the other tweak to that is we don't even necessarily know what to ask. And what I mean by that is, so going back to what we started with, had we earnestly prayed for the stuff a year ago and asked for that and he gave us that, I think we'd be miserable ish.
And if you remember, it just came to my mind one of the times we were submitting something up for review. We were up in the loft at the other house and we prayed before doing it and we asked for God's will. We didn't
Right.
ask for it to work. We
Right.
we asked for God's will, and that's what we got, which is way better.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what we have to remember is when we think we want something, we don't even know. We don't even know what's best for us.
Right. And I think where this becomes a conflict for Christians, and I feel like we've talked about this before, but I feel like where this becomes a conflict for some Christians is they pray specifically for a thing. And when that thing doesn't come to fruition,
Mm-hmm.
they're like, oh, God doesn't exist. He doesn't love me,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And it's because my belief is that God's working other things. God's playing Tetris,
Mm-hmm.
and he's doing other things to give you something greater. But at the same time, if you're digging up that seed
Mm-hmm.
and you're destroying it with grumbling and complaining and all those other, how that reminds me of we'll talk about this because it involves some of the stuff that I was telling you about this morning that annoyed me last night. But it's like, as much as you want to be generous and be giving and be loving to those people around you or the people that you love and that love you, there comes a point where you're like, your grumbling and your complaining is exhausting me and I don't want to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, why am I going to be generous and giving and take care of you as I have above and beyond what's required of me, when even when I do that, you don't do your part and you grumble and complain.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like my situation too last night.
Right.
Same thing.
Right.
Well, and something
which is kind of the same thing that starts the other part
some
that I want to talk about. But go ahead.
okay, so as we were talking, something else came to my mind. So when we're talking about how we want this, sometimes we don't know what's best for us, and we're chasing after this one thing that God's trying to close a door on because it's not the right thing. Well, I was thinking kind of it from the other perspective. Sometimes we expect things of people and we put pressure on them for specific outcomes without understanding how God's working in their lives. And what the reason I'm saying that,
So are you? Let me see if I understand. So are you
okay,
saying like I want Bob to do a certain thing, but God's calling Bob to do something else, and I
yeah,
feel like it's unanswered prayer, but there's Tetrisy stuff going on that I don't know, can't see.
I don't know about that last part maybe,
Okay.
but what I'm getting at, you'll know what I'm talking about. So somebody was telling me what I need to do to be successful,
Right.
and I'm saying I'm not I'm not judging my success based on numbers, on
Right.
whatever. I'm basing my success on, am I listening to what God's calling me to do, and am I doing those things? And yes, am I prioritizing the things that God's telling me to prioritize? Yes,
Right.
which means yes, I am successful right now.
Right.
Uh so I guess I don't know, it's kind of like not a mirror image, but it's like from the other side, we need to be careful about, like, okay, so for us, we need to make sure that the specific outcomes we're after is what God actually wants and it's in alignment with his will.
Mm-hmm.
But then when we're talking to other people, especially like believers that are moving in the spirit of God, listening to what God's telling them to do, we need to be really careful about how we judge that, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Um, hmm. I'm just. It's absolutely amazing to me how I don't know for people that claim or think or believe or verbalize that the Bible is just a book of wishes and old stories and fables. I, I definitely I could not more emphatically disagree with that assessment because it's
Mm-hmm.
I, I'm thinking back to the stuff that we're experiencing in our life,
Mm-hmm.
and um so there's just example after example after example after example that is directly related. I mean, I can argue that when we work with companies who arbitrarily change the pay plan and take stuff away because they can, because, oh, you're an employee, that's what your contract says, I can change the rights whenever I can, change the terms of the agreement, financial, whenever I want. it's it's the exact opposite of the earlier portion of this.
Mm-hmm.
So the earlier portion of this is he's giving more, being more generous to the people who came on afterwards, and the people at the beginning feel slighted, feel entitled to more, feel whatever. And I don't know, there's just all these pieces of this puzzle that literally is speaking to our lives right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you and I have both worked for companies that it's like, hey, we're going to start you off here with this kind of compensation, and through no fault of our own non-performance, like that income gets chopped and chopped and chopped and chopped and chopped, and they're like, ah, that just is what it is.
Mhm.
which is the exact opposite of this.
Mhm.
Um, and then it makes me think of, oh, is the worker not worth his wages, and all those other things that we've talked about. It's just that is those things are always timely with our life.
Mhm.
It's not a random.
Yeah, well, and it really does change the conversation when you bring God's word into it.
Mm-hmm,
It's interesting how no matter what we're going through in life, we can pick up the Bible, read, and it relates. And it's almost like we have God kind of entwined in our conversation,
mm-hmm.
helping us work through whatever it is.
Right.
It's
Well, how
pretty,
long have we been doing this? 4 years, 5 years, 6 years? I mean, it was
I
before we
don't,
got married, wasn't it?
yeah.
So 6 years, 7 years, we've done a morning Bible study. And like, I can't even imagine not having this daily conversation with God
Mhm.
and each other
Mhm.
and rolling through into,
Like Rosa said, our lives would be disasters without
yeah,
God.
I, well, they definitely wouldn't be where they are now.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Come on, baby.
I think it'd be easy to pursue other things and pursue things that don't make sense. So later today, when I have to have a tough conversation, it's under the context of this. It's
Mm-hmm.
literally, hey, this is what you agreed to. I've
Mm-hmm.
been more than generous with you.
Mm-hmm.
I've given you more than I said I would give you.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you now complaining? Like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't understand why you think you agreed to that. Now all of a sudden you think you're entitled to more, or whatever the case is.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing has changed from what I said to what you agreed to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's that firm yet fair plus a boundary,
Mm-hmm.
of, and that reminds me of the conversation I had a week ago, that it was like, you can't put this on me. This is what you agreed to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you said this. That's not what we agreed to. This is what we agreed to. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's just really,
Helpful.
um, yeah,
Yeah.
it's it's more than helpful. It is. I mean, like you said, this is why we pray for wisdom and why we get into the word and do the things. And so going back to the people being healed,
Mm-hmm.
one of my big complaints isn't the right word, but it's kind of the right word, is one of my big desires isn't the right word. I don't know. I don't even know what word I want to use here. One of my big things is our people being ambitious and accountable and aggressive with doing the things that need to be done. And you look at the people trying to be healed, and they're putting themselves out there. They're being ambitious, they're being aggressive, they're being stifled, they're still being,
Mm-hmm.
and they're meeting
They're
resistance, they're
pursuing what
overcoming.
they want no matter
Exactly.
what obstacle.
Exactly. And they're not just over here sitting on the couch going, wow, somebody needs to come heal me.
Mm-hmm.
They're actively pursuing what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and that's actually a pretty good lesson to us as well, because it's like I look out in the field and I see weeds starting to creep up from a little bit of irrigating we've done, and it's like, okay, so I can sit here and complain, or I can go get rid of the weeds.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
But if there's going to be a harvest, it takes effort. It takes pursuing what you want, which is the
Mm-hmm.
harvest. And
Yeah.
it's seeing the things that need to be done and doing it when nobody else is doing it.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
I mean,
And not getting stuck in our heads thinking about doing it, which makes us think we're doing something when we're actually
right.
not.
Well, and the funny thing is when you actually yesterday when I did that one row, I mean it was maybe 15 minutes, maybe is all it took.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, man, it'd be nothing to do a row every day. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's 30 rows,
Yeah.
30 days. Like you could
Is
literally
that
just
enough once a month?
maybe, I don't know.
I
But
guess you'd find out.
and even if you doubled it and did 2 rows, you did an up and back,
Uh-huh.
then who knows? Maybe that's what needs to be done. But it's one of those things where it's like there really isn't that much to it.
Once it gets out of control, then there is.
Right. But
Yeah.
it's one of those things where I'm like, instead of making this a big deal
Uh-huh.
and thinking about it, and it's like if you get down to the daily habit or the daily task of doing it,
Yeah.
30 minutes to keep that spotless would be nothing.
Right. Yep. That's a good point.
But I mean, you spend more than that watching a TV show.
Yep. Very true.
And do you watch a TV show? And it's funny, I think a lot of the time we think we're exhausted and we're spent and man, I can't possibly do any more. And then it's just like, eh, whether it,
I
I don't
think
know.
I think yeah, sometimes it is in our head, I think, because we're weighed down with our thoughts.
Right.
But then
About
once you
doing it.
get moving with your body, your mind follows and it's like it just dissipates.
It's overcoming resistance.
Yeah. That's what it is, I guess.
Because
Yeah.
it's not hard. It's overcoming the resistance.
Mhm. Well, the
Hmm.
other thing I love in here is I just love his generosity. Like when I mean, he's always complete in, I mean, just like with the denarius story, the master doesn't change the amount of pay per person, which means the people need to have humility.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I saw humility in this a lot. Not only with just that, there was something else. Let's see, what was
And
the
it's
other
funny.
thing?
I saw the lack of humility more than I did anything else.
Well, the importance of humility because
Oh, right.
well, because it's saying, yeah, it shall not be so among you, but whoever desires to become great among you, let him be your servant, and whoever desires to be first among you, let him be your slave, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life a ransom for many. And so when you think about that, so that and the denarius thing, I'm just seeing the humility that God wants from us
Mm-hmm.
is to really value people so much that we are serving them, that we are making sure that we're happy for them when they do well, and I think we see very little of that in our world right now. But especially with the me culture and look at me, look at what I'm doing.
Yeah. It, man, there's a lot speaking to me directly right now. And what I mean by that is so going back to what you were just talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, reminds me of a conversation we had about a week ago. And do you remember? So we were talking and having a tense conversation with somebody, and they said, "Well, I told you not to buy that," and I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa! You don't get to tell me what machinery to buy for my
Oh,
property, for my tools. Like that's my money to do what I want. Well, yeah, I'm just saying. I'm like, whoa, whoa, like
right.
that's not your place. Like that's a complete and total lack of humility
Mhm.
that just really, truly, just really hit me again.
Mhm.
This, like, I don't know who you think you are that you're telling me what to do with my stuff. Like,
Mhm.
that's not your gig.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. Like, I do see humility and I see a lack of humility in all of these things on both sides of this, very much so.
Mhm. Yep. Well, and when you do have that humility and you're in that right mindset, heart set, whatever, and you're serving people with your whole heart and really seeing them and loving them, I feel like that is a place where you really experience joy, you experience fulfillment, you experience peace. You are
Mm-hmm.
usually when we get stressed out and stuff, it's because we're absorbed with ourself. And when we go outside of ourselves to support other people and help them, it really does like feed that feeling of fulfillment and joy and peace in life. And uh, I think it is just a tactic of the enemy to twist people's minds into thinking, no, what I need is stuff for me and that'll make me happy. And that's not at all
Right.
the truth.
Well, and it reminds me of a conversation you had recently that we talked about where it's kind of the, well, I expect more from you. It's like, man, have I not been loyal? Have I not given more than I've been asked?
Mm-hmm.
And the, well, that I don't really care. I want more now. And it's like, what? Like, how do you feel like you're entitled to that?
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, those among us who want to be great should be serving. So,
Right.
how are you serving?
Right.
How, instead of taking,
Right.
are
You're
you
serving by demanding more from me. Is that
right
what?
and belittling and whatever
Right.
instead of what's the word when you encourage people?
Encourage
I
people.
want to say admonish, but there's like a word
Are you talking
that's the
edify?
opposite. Edify.
Okay.
Yes. That's a I've been that word has been like stuck in my mind the last couple of days. But that's what I've been trying to think. I think it's so empowering when you feel edified by somebody
Hmm.
when you're doing your work and
Yeah, I mean, you're talking words of affirmation, which is one of the five love languages. I I'm gonna throw you a slight curveball though.
uh,
Is the person that we're talking about specifically? Look at who they actually edify. Are they edifying people that are doing the right things
right. Mm-mm.
and getting good results, or are they edifying people who are doing the wrong things who are getting results? And
Right.
I think the eye-opening thing for me is, this goes back to the not being unequally yoked. If you look at who you're working with on a professional level, whether it's a somebody that, and this is true for me too, right? I look at the people who are edified around me with one of the contracts I hold, and they edify the absolute worst people who are not doing the right things by their clients, their employees, their whatevers. And it's like, wait a minute. If that's who you're edifying, that's where you see value
Mm-hmm.
because that's who you're promoting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be associated with
Right. It's the wrong people to yoke yourself to. Not the same. We're not going in the same direction.
Well, no. But what I guess what I'm saying is, if I if I edify and speak highly of the results a thief is getting,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody who is unethical and immoral,
Mm-hmm.
what am I telling you that I value? I value the
Right.
results by any means necessary,
Right.
even if that's being unethical and immoral.
Right.
So that's the behavior, because that's what I'm edifying, that I want to see duplicated.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter what you say in private, if that's what you say in public, that's what your organization's going to duplicate.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's true.
And I look at, so I guess my question is, how do you, when you discover that, I think being associated with it is toxic
Mm-hmm.
and destructive.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to work towards eliminating it without necessarily a knee jerk reaction of eliminating it, but I think you do have to work towards eliminating it.
Right. Well, I think, yeah, it does. I was gonna say it harms your self confidence, but when I over time, but I think it's worse than that because it makes your self worth. I mean, you really have to be strong in
Mm-hmm.
believing in who you are and what you're about to overcome that kind of resistance where you're feeling
Right.
diminished and put down and
Sure.
stepped on. And
But I think you have to get rid of those toxic relationships. I think you
yeah,
have
I
to work
do.
to get rid of them. If
I do
and
too.
I you may never do anything wrong to me personally. Like, we may
Mm-hmm.
have a perfectly fine relationship,
Right.
but if you're edifying people who are living their life in a way that is not godly and all those other things, I I don't.
Well, it's a clear, you can clearly, you know
Right.
that you are in the wrong relationship because you're not
Right. It's almost a
properly
matter of
yoked.
time before.
It breaks.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the wisdom. Well, not breaks, but it's almost like the. So, for example, if I, so if all of a sudden I start telling you how cool and how good, um, I don't know, I can't even think of an
A
example.
serial killer.
Maybe, I if I start edifying and telling you how great womanizers are,
Right.
and like, hey, look at this guy who's doing this with all these women and this and that and this and that, you would be foolish to not think.
Right.
I may have never cheated on you, but you would be foolish to not think that I
Yeah.
wasn't moving in that direction based on who I'm edifying.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And that's, I mean, you can look at a corporate culture pretty quick and make a decision of, are they edifying the things that should be edified, or are they edifying things that are toxic,
Destructive.
destructive?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah, makes sense. There's these cute little birds. Look, they're getting my attention.
Huh.
So, yeah, that's a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
You ready?
Yep.